Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to our next episode of 6 Feet Under Exhumed, our rewatcher series of 6 Feet Under. I'm Kari the Mortician.
I'm Faith, that mortuary professor, and we are talking about the new person. Is the episode? It's episode 10.
Yeah.
It seems like we've already done 10 episodes.
I feel like we've done a million more, but then
I
it also
know.
feels
Yeah,
like hardly any.
I know. Yeah,
I think when you start watching the episode, they're long. I mean, there
they
is
are.
so much packed into. It's not like a
Hmm.
sitcom,
Right.
like an hour sitcom, which is there hour sitcoms, but it's not very light. There is so
No.
much depth to every episode and
Hmm.
all the storylines. And we really, with this one, start getting into some heavier, even heavier topics than we
Yeah.
were before. Um, yeah, and we introduce the most amazing character that's short-lived, but
No.
gosh, I love this episode
I
because of
know.
her.
I thought it was funny when they were showing just little clips of the interviews that they were doing on the different people. Because it's so stereotypical. Like, the one guy is just weird and
Yeah.
I don't know. But then, she seems at least she interviews well,
She does.
you
Yeah, so
know.
Rico's left to go
Yep.
work at the Kroner's Corporation. And so they tried to make it without him and they decide we need to hire somebody. So let's have interviews.
Mhm.
And they bring in these characters of sorts that they have worked hard to create these characters. And she's there and she is very perfect on paper, perfect in
Mhm.
person. Um, such a oh God, she's such a great character.
I know she
Oh,
is.
she's so good in it.
I know. I like that actress a lot, and I just love the character. It's yeah, she's great. So she interviews great, and they're like, well, we don't want to be desperate, so don't call her right away, And so, but anyway, they end up hiring her, and her name is Angela. And she starts, quickly, and from the beginning, she's just really outspoken and
Well, and she shows up with
yes.
like boobs hanging out,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, she looks like she's going clubbing,
Yep.
not at all the professional, put together, kind of straighter laced that they interviewed. And so she shows
Hmm.
up to work that first day and they're like, and she just lets
Right.
fly whatever comes out of her mouth.
Usually people wait a little longer
I
before they
know.
like show their true colors, right? I mean, but she's just like gets the job and then she's like dropped that professional persona completely.
Yeah.
She's like wearing like a thong and her boobs are hanging out and she kind of talks oh my gosh, what's the word that I want to say? Not brash, but not in my grandmother would say she doesn't speak in a way that a lady should.
Yeah, she just, and I don't know, some of it is inappropriate by standards, and it's not that she just lets fly whatever kind of
Mhm.
thought comes to her mind, whether it's appropriate, not appropriate. She talks to someone she just met as if you're having a drink at a bar with your
Yeah.
best friend in the
Yep.
back seaty corner talking about something super scandalous. And she just talks that
Mhm.
way so openly.
Which I appreciate.
I do
I would
too.
love working with her, to be honest.
I think it would be
I
fun.
think
Well,
she'd be fun.
and they kind of question everything with her, but
Yeah.
her bodies look so good that she's doing that they kind of are
Yeah.
wondering what do we do here? Like she's amazing. That body looks amazing. The skin is flawless. Like the one they're like
Yeah.
looking up close at it, like that is perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one at the beginning. So let's start with the death scene.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
We're in the
Yep.
kitchen and we've got this guy going on and on about what his day is going to be like. And the wife is cooking breakfast, making eggs, making bacon. And all of a sudden she goes, wham,
Yeah.
dashes him upside the head with the fry pan and gone. And he like rolls on the floor and she sits down and eats her breakfast, probably for
Yeah.
the first time ever eating it warm and sitting for forever.
Mhm.
And she's just, she said she was bored by him and just needed him to go away.
Yeah. I mean, and then it was David and Nate were in the prep room, working on him, and Dave was like, I'm boring sometimes. Ooh, it's just kind
Mhm.
of like, wow, somebody really could get that sick of you that they just whack you over the head with a pan just to shut you up.
Well,
But
and they at the beginning of this episode, I made a note. I always look at my notes, but they start where they're vacuuming. Dave is vacuuming and he goes into this like dance. Is it the dance routine at the beginning or something? Like
yeah.
he's just
Mhm.
envisioning a more grand life because this man was killed for being boring and he thinks, gosh, maybe I'm boring. So how could my life be jazzier? But he's vacuuming and all I can think is, oh my God, every single funeral director complains about the vacuuming because you vacuum in the morning, you vacuum after the funeral, you vacuum after the visitation, you vacuum after you set up the flowers, you vacuum after you've moved the chairs, you vacuum like the vacuum you own at a funeral home is crucial to your
Yes.
sanity because you
Yes.
vacuum all the time.
Oh, all the time. I love vacuuming, and I was always taught to vacuum diagonally.
Oh, so the
Like,
perfect line.
yeah, so they have the lines. It still bothers me when I vacuum the carpet. There's one rug at the auto shop, and when I vacuum it, I have to do it diagonally because it just doesn't look right. But yeah, I love
That's
vacuuming.
hilarious.
This is my
I
favorite
went to
thing.
a funeral home and they had one of like the Roomba. It wasn't a Roomba, but
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like an auto vacuum that goes out
Oh,
twice a day to go vacuum as much as it can and stuff. And then they can spot check with a regular
huh.
vacuum. And I was like, that is genius because that thing's running at night. It's running
Oh,
in the
yeah.
morning and it kind of picks up all the little residual whatever. And you don't
Mhm.
have to get quite as much time. I was like, huh, I'm kind of all aboard with this because that
Yeah,
seems
that's a good
smart.
idea. Yeah,
But
first funeral home I worked in had like one of those Kirby vacuums that weighed like 25 pounds at the metal,
yeah,
thing. Oh, it worked so well though. I loved it. And you had to like drag it up the stairs and do the stairs with it. And it was, I don't know. I love vacuuming. I just always have loved it. So maybe I'm strange, but I would like if there was one little like baby breath flower that fell down, I would get the little like carpet sweeper and I just I just
gotta
love
be
it.
perfect.
I
Gotta be
know.
perfect.
Yeah.
So we've got that going on. David's having these dreams. And then the big next scene kind of is the art show. So Billy,
Yes.
this big personality, Billy, Brenda's brother, has this art show, and kind of a lot of them go to it because she's invited Nate's mom, and she shows up with a Russian, and Nate or not Nate, yeah, Nate and her are there, and then her mom shows up, and the doctor who wrote the book about like it's this
Yeah.
huge like coming together of all these personalities and all these
Mhm.
big moments
Yeah. Yeah. Her mom is drunk, which is common, and
hitting on everybody.
hitting on everybody. And you can tell she's embarrassed. Brenda's embarrassed of her mom's behavior, and her mom makes some comments to her where you can just see that there's not a great relationship there. And yeah, I mean they're just looking around the pictures and they're really good. And then they move over and there's one that Billy had taken of Nate urinating on a wall that he had no idea that he was being watched or that Billy was following him or that, he took a picture of him without him knowing and like made it into this art gallery piece. And so he was very angry about that and kind of stormed off. And Billy was knew what he was doing, but played it off. Well, what's the problem? It's art. That's what I
Pushes,
do.
he likes to push
He does.
buttons
Yeah.
and
He
figure
does
people
things on
out.
purpose to upset people and then act like
Yeah,
they're he gaslights everybody. That's what it is. He does
yeah.
something to get you upset and then acts like you're the jerk for being upset.
Like,
Um,
why would you be mad at me? I'm bipolar and I have my schizophrenia and all my problems.
well,
And how
that
could
and
you be
like
mad
I'm
at
an
me?
artist. This is
And
art.
it's
I mean, I put you in an
fine.
art gallery.
But it
I
becomes
don't know.
kind
Would you be mad if somebody put you in an art gallery and you didn't know it? I mean, I don't think I would.
it would depend on it. If it was me like peeing, I mean, obviously it's not
Well,
showing any
yes.
parts. It's just him peeing, like
Well, he's doing it in public. It's not like
right? He
he
was in
was
an
fine in the
alley.
bathroom. Yeah.
I think if someone took a very candid private photo of me
Sure.
and put
Yeah.
it out without me knowing, I would definitely, I don't know. I don't know how I would react. Maybe if the photo's beautiful, I don't say anything. Maybe I am
Yeah.
not as, I don't know. I think it would depend on the scenario, but it would definitely catch me off guard if I had no idea that I was going to walk up and, oh shit, there's me peeing, and everyone's
Yeah.
standing there looking at it. And it becomes like the funny because later Claire and Gabe come by to look at it through the window at night, and Nate and Keith come to look at it through. So like
Yeah.
everybody wants to come see this picture because they've all heard about it. It's just kind of like the thing, right?
Yeah.
The
I don't know.
episode.
I feel like it was a little bit of an overreaction.
Yeah.
Um, but because he was doing it in public, it wasn't like it was, him in his bathroom. I mean, if you're gonna pee somewhere in public, somebody's gonna see you.
Yeah.
But, I guess maybe he should have told him or asked him if he could put it in there, but I
Yeah.
don't know. Whatever. But that's what happens at the art show. He's mad about the picture, and then, Ruth is there and she sees it, and
And she's
you
with her
know,
Russian friend. This is like the first time they're hanging out, kind of going out together, not so much a
Mhm.
date, but yet just being out. And she's enjoying him and she's
Yeah.
enjoying their time. And I think it surprises her because she expected that, what's his name? Ephraim? What's the
Hiram.
Hiram, that maybe he was supposed to be it because he was kind of the secret guy and
Yeah.
the one that she kind of risked everything for. And but then he's not really it. And
Yeah.
then she's enjoying this Russian and exciting kind of a new part of her, which I think is fun.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's interesting because at the art show, Brenda says this is the most fun I've ever seen you having to her, and she's just like standing there.
Yeah.
Like, what
I
is she?
don't
I don't.
I don't think she knows fluctuation in emotion. I think
Okay.
that Ruth is such a one level person that she doesn't even realize when she's sad or happy, or I don't think she knows what to even want to feel because she's been in this like rut of I am just going to play my part
Hmm.
and my feelings don't matter as much. And I feel like she did that for so long
Yeah.
that she's now trying to figure out like what do I enjoy? What
Mhm.
makes me happy in any way? And I don't have to be sad and I don't have to put up with things. And
Yeah.
she goes on this journey of this, identifying who she is and trying to figure that all out while still being a woman and
Yeah.
being a businesswoman and doing her own thing. And I just love that about her
I
and
do too. I
her
really like
journey.
her a lot. Um. So
And
yeah. So they're at. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
They're at the art show. I'm trying to think what happens next. So then, oh yeah, so
Claire,
then they're back at the funeral home, and Angela, the new person, is talking on the phone to somebody, and she's just pretty
crash,
crass. Yeah, I was gonna say vulgar, but I don't
maybe.
know. Yeah, something like that. Just she doesn't keep anything private, and it's a shock to David and even Nate doesn't love it. And then she goes upstairs and is like eating lunch with Ruth a different time and is asking Ruth all these very personal questions. And it just makes everybody so uncomfortable because they are a family that doesn't talk about things.
Mm-mm. No,
And
don't talk about it. You can't have problems
yeah,
with it.
no, you can't. And so she just completely breaks that mold, and it really offends them, and they just don't know how to deal with it. So they are looking for some reason to fire her because her
Yeah,
work is great. They can't really fire her because she's not doing a good job. They just don't like her personality,
yeah.
which sucks at.
It just doesn't mesh with them.
Hmm.
And it's not that her personality is bad. It's just it doesn't mesh with them. And
Yeah.
we bring back the Claire and Gabe relationship here, which arcs for several more
Yeah.
episodes. And, his little brother has accidentally shot and killed himself in previous episode. And she's over at his house. She has kind of inputted herself into his life a little bit right now,
Hmm.
seeing that he needs a friend and he needs maybe something. And they're trying to go through toys and his mom comes and like freaks out, like you can't get rid of anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a common, we saw it earlier with Ruth when Nathaniel died and her friend was like, let's get rid of everything, or maybe you
Yep.
should keep this. And that age old question,
Yeah.
when is the time? And I think there's no set schedule, but
Oh,
what do you get rid of? When do you get rid of it? what do you keep? What is okay to keep? And I think
Yeah.
there's no set standard, but everyone imparts their own feelings and thoughts. Like, ooh, if we go in and clean everything out, it's going to be easier for you.
Yep.
Or, ooh,
Yeah.
maybe if you keep it forever, it'll be easier. But only you know the answer, I guess. Tell us, guys, if you've had that scenario, like, what have you done? Have you cleaned stuff out? Have you kept it? What special thing did you keep? I would love to know kind of what people
Hmm.
have done on their own, but what have you
Yeah.
seen with that, working with
It's just
families
very
and stuff?
individualized. I mean, I think it's one of those things that we can't judge other people on. Like some people
Mhm.
want to get rid of things, and that's okay. And some people don't, and that's okay. I do think that it can complicate things if it if they don't move on in some ways at some point. I don't think there's anything wrong with anything anybody does, but that I think there's a difference between, keeping some things forever
Yeah,
and keeping everything forever. I think that's a sign of maybe more complicated grief or more unresolved grief over time.
yeah.
But, when and how much and what you keep, save or don't, is just personal and individual, and there's no right or wrong there. It's just whatever works for you or feels right,
I feel
to
like
you.
one situation where we see like a forced with that is people who have a parent in a nursing
Nursing home. I was just
facility
gonna say that.
and
Yeah.
they say,
You got to come in 24 hours and get their stuff out.
you got to get out because they're charging you
Got
for
to,
every
yeah.
day that your stuff is still that your loved
Mhm.
one's stuff is still there. And so
Yeah.
you are forced, and we hear families that'll be like, I can't even come make arrangements today because I have to go clear all their stuff out
Yeah.
because I love how I say stuff because I start
Yes.
saying I don't want to. I want to be really good.
Yeah.
And so, it's like this huge pressure that they have to go and they have to get all this stuff out and they have to decide, what are we keeping? What are we leaving? What are we donating? What are we doing? In this really forced, quick moment where the reality of the fact that their loved one has died is not even like set in yet, I think.
No, not even. And, the situation could be that that person's been living in that facility for a long time and they have a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Or, maybe they haven't and they don't have a lot of stuff there, but there's still a whole house to think about now. And yeah, that always kind of bothered me a little bit when families would tell me that. It's so common. They're like, well, we have to go get the stuff out of the nursing home so they can give the room to somebody else. And
Mhm.
like, I mean, I get it, but good
Come on.
grief. Can we just,
Yeah.
slow down a little bit? Like, do you want to be moving your mom into the nursing home while another family is like still getting their person's stuff out? Like, it almost feels like there's somebody waiting with their box of stuff outside the door for you.
Weird. Yeah, it's a
Doesn't it feel
weird,
like that
like
though?
they should get
Yeah,
so many days
they
or
should.
something. There should be
Yeah.
something that's
Maybe there is, I
there.
mean, in different facilities, but yes, I have very much always had families feel like it was something they had to do immediately.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
Yeah. Well, we see David. Gosh, David, I just love him.
Mhm.
He's still volunteering at the church. We got
Mhm.
Crazy Kathy, which
Oh
I just
yeah.
love her. Crazy Kathy,
Tracy.
church leader. Oh, Tracy. Crazy Kathy. I wrote down Crazy Kathy. Yeah, Tracy,
Yeah,
the lady who volunteers and stuff, and she's dyed her hair. She's like a platinum blonde now or whatever. And she approaches him and says some stuff, but she's not as pushy as she used to be.
she's not. He's pretty much shut her down, but he overhears her saying that Keith is going to be at some volunteer thing, the next week. And
Yep,
so he's a little more friendly to her because he's hoping to get information out of her about what that event is, so he can show up to it. And
yep.
she's just kind of like, oh, you were
Aw,
you were kind of nasty to me about leaving you alone last time I saw you, and now you want to be my friend. So she's like, oh, I don't know. But it's fairly obvious that he is just trying to be nice to her to get information on her because he overheard her say that Keith was going to be at something.
yeah, and he keeps having all these grand dreams of some new exciting big life. The homeless guy hitting on him and wanting to like whatever.
Yes.
But he does show up the next week when Keith is there and is like, "Oh, you're here
Oh,
too."
surprise.
He's so, he thinks he's so coy or
Yeah.
not coy, but whatever.
clever, sneaky or
Yes.
something.
And
And it's like,
he's so not, but
no,
they
when Keith is like, why are you here? You never come to this,
exactly, this is not
you
your day.
know?
This is not your time.
Uh-huh.
And they have good conversations and they
Yeah.
end up hanging out and stuff. And he invites him back to his apartment. And Keith's like, okay, we'll go talk. And David in this new grand dream of a
Yeah.
exciting, like wild sex life he's having, thinks, oh, I'm gonna just attack
Yeah, he's
Keith.
he's going to be a little more forward because that's like, and a lot of people do that, I think, when, when a relationship ends, they kind of swing that way, where
Yeah.
they become maybe more promiscuous or want to be more promiscuous to replace some of that interaction or whatever. And it just it never quite works. It's not a good
No.
idea, but I do think it's human nature to seek that out when, you are heartbroken, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, they end up, basically starting to see each other again, kind of. Um, and yeah, I mean, I love Keith. I'm glad to see him back.
But he is, so we had saw him at the club with some gentlemen and they have started
Hmm.
dating. And
Hmm.
so Dave is trying to like make out with him and Keith was like, I'm dating someone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing this. And he's like, it's fine and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you know what, Dave, you got to get your poop in a pile
Yeah.
because this is not a good way to live. You are out of control right now.
Hmm.
Like, get some help.
Yeah.
And we see this again in later episodes where he really
Hmm.
lays the hammer down. But this is kind of our first glimpse that Keith is like, yeah, dude, this is not you. You're not living a good path right now. Figure this
Hmm.
out.
Yeah.
And of course, he doesn't listen right now, but
Yeah.
eventually, maybe. Now, we, Billy, the only other part in this episode, really, with Billy, kind of going back to him, he
Yeah.
goes to that doctor's office, the doctor who wrote the book about Brenda and Billy, and
Hmm.
kind of put them into this public discussion light. And he goes and destroys the office, like rips apart
Hmm.
everything, all the files, everything. And he takes all the files that are his. And you see him in his parents' backyard with the pool and it's filled with papers and his parents come out and they're like, oh, Billy, like what is going on? You owe doctor who's it, what's it, an
Yeah.
apology. And you realize how messed up that family
Oh,
is.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, they're just talking to him like, I mean, he's their patient, or
Yeah.
something like his dad is like, oh, good, we have a dialogue. What, da, 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 da. And it's
Oh,
like, can you just be a dad?
let's get
Like,
out puppets and let's have
yeah, like let's just be somebody's mom and dad and not try to be
I don't
their
think they know
therapist or
how
their,
to.
no, they don't. And that's sad. But Billy, kind of has a breakdown and is very upset about things that have happened in, the past to him and his sister. And I mean, he's just having a break, basically. But the parents are handling it very coldly and very almost I mean they don't seem like that they are, but they're kind of removing themselves as parents and kind of making it more a professional
Yeah.
thing than a personal thing with him. And it's kind of sad to see. So then, they tell Brenda that they think that he should go to a facility in Colorado. And, she freaks out and is like, you're not going to institutionalize him. You want to do this and this and this to him. And I don't know. I mean, even though the parents are not great parents, he still needs help.
Was this the episode
Oh,
we find out about him trying to kill himself when she came home
yes.
from school? So she had gone
Yes.
off to where I can't remember where she was, Europe or something, and
Yeah.
they called her back home. And when her mom picked her up at the airport, says Billy killed himself. And so for however many hours, she believes her brother has died because she left and had all this on her. Well, it was all a mind F
Yeah.
a game from her parents because he had not so much tried, but a call to help and had
Hmm.
self-harmed, but had not killed himself. And so this all came out. So she basically steps away from her parents at this point because
Hmm.
of what they've put her through. And she really sees kind of a bigger light of the whole scenario. I
Yeah, and she had gotten a scholarship to go to Yale, and it just so happened that that's when Billy had his breakdown that time. And I think she starts to realize that every time something's going well for her, he has a breakdown, and whether that is purposeful or it's just he's that messed up or whatever, the it can't be ignored that every time something is going well for Brenda, Billy suddenly has a mental breakdown and has to be
right.
hospitalized, or it becomes this big dramatic thing.
He needs
And
Brenda
so
back and he needs
he
her
needs
with
Brenda
him. And
back, and he
you got to
needs
get rid of
this.
Nate. You got to do this. You
Mhm.
got to do that because I need you. And
Yeah, it's very
oh,
manipulative.
I can't imagine living like that. Like,
I can't either. I feel bad for her for that reason because, I think if anybody's ever had a parent or a spouse or anybody that's manipulative in that way, there's a lot of guilt, right? There's a
yeah.
lot of, well, if I don't, then they're going to hurt themselves, or then it's
Mhm.
my fault, or, even if you know that it's not your fault, if someone harms themselves, you still feel like because of what you do or don't do, that's going to
Right.
be what they do. And that's a really manipulative thing to use against somebody. And I think it's just really starting to hit her very clearly that that is something that he uses, that he weaponizes,
Oh gosh, yeah.
to be absolved of any, bad things that he does, but also to maintain control over his sister and, even his parents. And
Yeah.
so her reaction is bad. She doesn't think he needs to go to a hospital or anything like that. And I think part of that is because she kind of maybe doesn't want to feed into his dramatics and knows that if he does have to go to a hospital, then she's the bad person if she doesn't stop her life for that time. So maybe she's trying to avoid it going that far
Yeah.
so that he can't once again get control of everybody for a time period. I don't know, but
So much to that. It's such, you feel like you were in the like a psychological world when you're watching that whole storyline and you feel the intensity
yeah.
of the push, pull, up, down, all around.
Yeah.
Like they do so good at
Well,
that.
that's just another credit to the show is that
Oh, it's so good.
there's very few stories or plot lines or characters, in this show that I can't see their side from. Even so, in this instance, the parents, even though they're bad parents, their son broke into a doctor's office and could have hurt somebody and is very clearly, whether he's playing it up or not, demonstrating, these
Yeah.
behaviors that are very dangerous. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe hospitalization isn't inappropriate. And, Brenda, you can understand why she may not want that because maybe she knows that he's using that to control her and she doesn't want to give him that ability. She
Yep.
doesn't want to play into it herself. And who knows? And that's the thing about Billy that's like throughout the whole show, I don't think we ever quite get 100% clarity on how much he's doing purposefully and how much he's not, or how much he doesn't realize he's doing purposefully.
Yeah.
And so even him, I would think to say that he doesn't want to go to a hospital because that probably sucks,
Oh yeah.
but he kind of does because he wants the attention and wants
Yep.
the. So you can see it from all the sides,
So
and
much
it's
happened
great.
in 2 episodes. We'll go
I
back to
know.
Billy in a big way because
Yes,
he
it goes
gets
way
some
off the
big
rails.
moments. So
Yes.
another big in this was Claire and the Gabe, and
Yep.
they have some really big conversations and he apologizes for the whole foot thing and
Yeah.
really you see, okay, well, maybe are these two getting together? Like, what's really happening here? But the end of this episode, like building out to the end of this episode, he says he has to go visit his dad, stepdad, I can't remember,
His dad. Yeah.
somewhere else, Barstow,
Some
whatever. I can't think of,
drive away. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know how
And
far it
so
is.
she's
These are
like, well, I'll go
hours.
with you. Like it's whatever. And so she's waiting for him. He doesn't show up and she gets this voicemail and you listen to this voicemail and he's like, I gotta, there's things I gotta kind of do on my own or whatever. And he's like, goodbye.
Hmm.
And so she kind of lets it go, but then she goes back and starts hearing the words.
Yeah.
and realizes he is saying goodbye,
Yeah.
like done forever.
Mhm.
And so she runs over to the mom's house and is like, where's Gabe? Where is he? What's going on? She's like, he's gone. Basically, like, I don't know, I don't care.
Yeah.
Done. So Claire's freaking out because she thinks, has he killed
Yeah.
himself? Is he dead somewhere? What is he doing? She can't get a hold of him. His
Yeah.
voicemail's like not working and stuff. And so we kind of close out that episode with, we don't know. We don't know where
Well,
he
the
is.
mom tells her that Gabe's dad died when he was a kid, so he's
Yeah.
lied to her about where he's gone and why. And I mean, I think that maybe she is kind of forcing herself on him a little bit. And originally maybe it's just that he didn't want to tell her no in the moment,
Hmm.
but then I mean, I think we've all done that where you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do that. And it's like, I'll cancel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're, and I think
I
that's
already know I'm going to cancel that later, but
right. Yeah. But and so I think at first, that's what it seemed like. But as it goes on, I think that it's hard because it's not, I don't think it's that he doesn't like her. I think it's that she's a connection to his dead brother.
right
I
at
mean,
this
how are you going
point,
to go? Yeah, what are you going to do? Go to her house and, oh, there's where my brother was laid out dead. Like,
that's a hard point. Yeah,
it
that's
is, especially
and
for a young person. I mean, they're
and
only in high
he's a
school.
teen boy too. Like I
Yeah.
hate to like group it all together, but you know, he's not going to admit like I really care for this person right
Yeah.
now and oh yes, I want to be with the girl who claimed I wanted her to suck my toes and like that's a hard pill to swallow and have to kind of confront with all of the friends and everybody. So I think he's going through a lot of emotion on
Oh,
his part,
yeah.
plus the brother, plus just everything, feeling super alone, feeling the
Well, his
guilt
mom
and
isn't,
oh,
and
she's cuckoo right now. And
yeah, and she blames him. And
yeah, so it's a lot. And so he's just gone. We don't know if he's gone for good. We don't know if he's coming back. And so we kind of leave it at that. I was excited to watch the next episode to see
yeah.
where that went because I couldn't remember. I had no recollection from
Oh,
watching
yeah.
this a couple years
Well,
ago.
the end is, they fired Angela.
Yeah, Dave does. He just walks in and
David
is like,
does.
peace out.
Well, they find one of Ruth's glasses broken, like goblet, like cup, you know what I mean? Drinking glass that was like some special gift. And nobody knows who broke it, but they kind of immediately go to, oh, it must have been her. She got it. We
And
have
I
to
thought
grab
maybe
her.
they're just making this up, trying to
I
get
did
her. Maybe
too.
Ruth will fire her if they blame her.
Yeah, or maybe they can like use it as a reason to fire her, even
Yeah.
though someone else did it or, whatever. And so it's a very convenient thing that happens that they see that they can pin on Angela to have a reason to fire her. And so they fire her. And it's so funny because, she's leaving with all of her stuff. And, I mean, I would imagine she'd been there, what, I don't know, a week. I mean, a short period of time.
Yeah.
And
And she's got a lot of crap. I
She's got
mean,
a
she's
lot of crap.
got
That's me.
bags
I
and
mean, you
boxes
should see my
and
office. I have a ottoman, I have a blanket, I have a pillow, I have a treadmill, I could live in that off. I really could. But, so she moved a lot of her stuff in and now she's leaving with it. And she apologizes to Ruth for breaking the glass, which is funny to me. Like, oh,
yes.
she really did break it? That sucks.
Yeah.
But that's a stupid reason to fire somebody, in my opinion, still. But
Her exit though, like kind of monologue or thing
yes.
is so powerful
Hmm.
and talking about how everyone there just can't admit who they are, basically. And
Yep.
the one quote I wrote down, everyone here is so fragile and can't bear to hear anything.
Yes. And it's
And
interesting that she just picks up on that in such a
she
short time.
does. And she throws out about Dave
Yep. She tells
not
Ruth
accepting.
she doesn't realize, I don't think she realizes that Ruth doesn't know because what she says is, and David, I've never seen someone so um weird about being gay. You know what I mean? And I
Ruth's
don't,
like,
yeah, and
what?
Ruth is like, what? So I think that Angela just thought everybody knew that because it's so obvious to her, but Ruth didn't know. Um, And so she drops that little bomb. And then she says, "This is the most depressing funeral home I've ever been in." And I kind of love that statement because
So true.
it's so true. When Cece and I first got together, she would come and visit me in New Mexico because I lived in New Mexico and she lived here in Colorado. And she would come to the funeral home and she'd be there for a weekend or whatever. And she would come by the funeral home and she met all my coworkers and all of this. But she was like, this is not what I thought a funeral home was, because she would always show up at the end of the day and everybody would stay and hang out, and the people I worked with in New Mexico were just so animated and loud and lively, and I mean we just had such a good
Yeah.
time all the time. And I think and she had commented that it really surprised her how fun it was, or
Yes.
how the people weren't at all what she had imagined. So to hear Angela say that the Fishers is the most depressing funeral home she's ever worked in. Yeah, funeral homes are not depressing places to work in.
Mm-mm.
Honestly, we
Yeah.
behave professionally and serve our families appropriately, absolutely. But we are still real people that have our own lives and personalities, and behind that curtain, we kind of let ourselves enjoy each other as coworkers, and can
Yeah.
absolutely have a laugh or a good time or play jokes on each other
That's what
or
I always say. It's hard, I think, for anybody to imagine that there is anything but sadness at a funeral home because
right.
the general public, the majority of
Yeah.
humanity, does not enter a funeral home without having had some loss or
Yes.
sadness or know the person
Yes.
that they're going to pay respects to that is having
Hmm.
loss, sadness. So it's hard to imagine going into this building and it just being a business, or going in and it not being heavy hearted.
Hmm.
And so I always tell people that because they're like, how do you do that every day? And I'm like, I'm walking in, I didn't lose anybody. I get to care for people. I get to
Yeah.
bring some peace. I get to help people through a moment. And most people just don't realize that side of it. Like, I'm not
They
crying all
don't.
day at the funeral home. Like, that's not what's
Yeah. They
happening.
don't. But what's always so kind of cool to me, and I tell my students this, is how quickly we can go. I mean, we could be cutting up like idiots in that front office, and the door opens, and everybody's like, it just changes.
Right.
Everybody immediately. Like if me and you are laughing and your phone rings and it's a first call, I'm a different person.
Yep.
I'm quiet or I leave the room. It's just we immediately can change our demeanors
Yeah.
depending on what's going on. But the baseline when there's no families or no public there is not unlike the probably the office that you work in, or the wherever it is, listeners, that you work, and kind of the shenanigans and joking and stuff that go on there. It's the
And
same
it's
for
not
us. No,
disrespectful.
no, it's never about the people of the
Us
deceased. It's
being
just,
human and
yeah,
us
we used
being
to.
people and us talking about our kids and our
Oh
lives and
yeah,
the
it's not
dates we
about
went
the.
on or our
Yeah.
families or whoever. And we have one guy at work. I pick on him because he's so funny. He's such a big teddy bear, but he has the most funeral director voice when he gets on
Oh
the
yeah.
phone. I don't
Hmm.
feel like I'm all that different on the phone, maybe a little bit, but oh my God, his voice goes up a couple octaves. Oh, hi. And he just has this sweet little voice. And
Oh my
it's so cute.
gosh.
And I
Like
always
your
am like,
mom, when your mom's yelling
it
at you at home, and then
is.
she has, "Get your shit picked up, Carrie." And then the phone rings. Hello.
Hello. That's
It's
exactly what
that.
it is. Oh my God, that's so true. Yeah. So it's the two sides of people and what you want people to see and your
Hmm.
professional persona versus kind of your casual and who you are
Absolutely.
just
And
with everybody. And
and I can tell you, I think people may worry about it, maybe not, but I've never worked in a funeral home where people made fun of the deceased or talked about them, or it would, like, we never did that. We would in Albuquerque, we had a meeting at like 8:30 every morning, but before that we'd all get in the front office, and that was, back when you got a daily newspaper and you would actually read it, and we would read the horoscopes, and we would read what celebrities died and
that's
try to guess
awesome.
how old they were, and we would read the stupid classified ads. That's what
Yeah.
we were doing. It wasn't about, anybody that we had in our care or their
Oh my
families
gosh,
or
did you
whatever.
see this? Or
Yeah.
yeah, it's not what I think a lot of people perceive it to be,
No.
unfortunately. I wish
No.
people could come and see. that daily life. And I know there's a lot of people who, if you're listening, would want to, because you are intrigued by it and you are wondering what's going on the backside and stuff. And it really is completely, it's almost like we're cognizant there is a person there
Of
that is
course.
dead. But you kind of go into auto mode where you're
You
doing your
do.
stuff or you're dressing somebody and you're having conversation
Yeah.
while you're doing this other. And it's not out of disrespect that there is a deceased, but if we stood there in somber silence the whole time, we can't enjoy our job.
No, not at
We
all.
have to have conversations with who we're working with, and that might involve laughter.
Oh
And
yeah, it's
it's not
always
that we're
interesting.
disrespecting the death by laughing
Not at
about
all.
something that we, the living, are talking about. And
Isn't it the worst though
that's
when something
hard.
funny happens like in public or in front of the families? Like one time we were going to the cemetery and me and my co-director and the deacon were all like, well, the cemetery is just a mile down. We'll all ride in the hearse. And each one of us was 300 pounds. I used to be 300 pounds. And so we're like these three big fat things in this hearse that can barely, move. And we're like, they're going to wonder why this procession is so damn slow. And then we get there and we like fall out like these big bouncy balls. And it's just so hard not to laugh at ourselves because, oh my
Yeah.
God, we look so stupid. We were just trying to save, a ride because it's just down this street. And now we look like a circus act or something.
Well, and there's a
And
lot of laughter with families. Like
yeah,
I'm trying to
absolutely.
remember what happened. I met with a family recently and I almost had to excuse myself. It was two people. I think it was a brother and sister of the deceased or a son, daughter. I can't remember. I just remember one was on each side of me at this table. One of them, the gentleman said something. I lost it. I was laughing so hard. The woman started laughing. I almost had to excuse me. I couldn't even continue. I couldn't pull myself to. It was just a moment, and they were on board. It wasn't
That's
offensive.
good
It
though. I
wasn't
mean,
bad.
no, that's
It's
one time
human.
I was at a committal once, and this was in New Mexico too, and I could still walk directly to that grave. I'll never forget this. And I had my cell phone like in my pocket of my jacket, and I leaned over to like start, the lowering device, and my cell phone fell out and fell down into, that in there. And we used the domes, so it was the flat and the casket goes on.
Yeah.
And so of course the family knew my cell phone had fallen in there, and they're like, and I'm like, because you can't go back, once you put the lid on, but they want to watch them go down. So what do you do? So the cemetery guy, his name was Bob. He was like, I'll just go down again. The family thought it was funny. They weren't upset at all. And he jumps down there and he takes my cell phone, and instead of like putting it in his pocket and coming back up, he just starts throwing it up. And so like my cell phone is like coming up and I'm like trying to grab it and and this goes on for like, I don't know, 30 seconds, and the family is cracking up, and I'm like, put it in your pocket and climb out of there. Like it didn't even occur to him to like just grab it and climb out. He was like just throwing it up into the sky so that I could catch it. And it was awful. It was so I mean, thank God it was the right family and they thought it was hilarious because that could have been like
Well, and
not great.
we're all human, and it's
Yeah.
seeing the levity in a moment and understanding like things happen. Like yesterday, we took a person to their home. The family
Hmm.
wanted them brought to their home to
Yep.
be in their casket at the home until the
Hmm.
service. No problem. So me and one of the apprentices get out there. We get them all set up. Everything was great. All went smoothly. And she goes, "Gosh, it's in the wedding ring." And they go, "Well, Dad didn't have a wedding ring." She goes, "No, mine."
Oh.
So we hunted. We knew it was not in the casket
Yeah.
because she thought she had it on in the car and she had not been in the casket.
Hmm.
I opened and got them all
Yeah.
set. We looked for forever. It felt like there was two grandsons, two sons. The beauty of it, they go, "Well, I kind of hope we find it so we can take a picture of you guys with the ring because we're telling people about this forever."
Oh my
I was like, "You
gosh.
can invite us to family reunions. We
Oh
are
yeah.
available, whatever you
Right?
want." Ended up, she had left it at home.
Oh yeah.
But thought she had had it, and we did this
Mhm.
huge hunt. But that's the thing is, I didn't know how that family would react too, because they had been kind of pretty really
Pretty
even killed,
yeah.
but They were so great about it. And most
Sure.
people understand like things happen as long
I
as
think,
it's not
yeah.
detrimental to the deceased, like
Hmm.
things happen. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that all happens. And I think the big end thing of this, the like shining light onto the next episode, is that Nate goes to Kroner's
Yep.
and goes to see Rico.
Now,
And
how does he get back there in their care center is what I want
right,
to know, but we can't get
right.
into that. I was like, you
He just
cannot just
shows
walk
up. He
in.
shows up on the spaceship there.
Yeah, you
And
can't just walk into some other funeral home's care center, but okay.
he is just there and he basically says, hey, like, do you want to come back? He's like, well, I want to come back, but you got to make it worth it and you need to do this, that, or the other. And they're like, okay, done.
Yep.
And so he agrees to come back. So we end with, is Gabe dead? Where's Gabe? Angela's gone. Rico's coming back. You know, mom Ruth knows that Dave's gay.
Yeah.
Kind of all these like things in the air. And so you're like, oh, what's going to happen next time?
Yeah.
So you guys will have to watch next week, our rewatcher of episode 12, 11 next week, The Trip.
11.
So
Yep.
make sure you check that out and come back and join us to see what all the answers are to all of the open-ended storylines they left us.
All
So we
right.
will see you guys
See you
next week.
next time.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.